Christmas tree, oh 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 Christmas tree. We gotta begin every video like they do every Christmas carol, with urchins singing.
Aww.
So my favorite Christmas movie of all time is every version of The Christmas Carol.
Really? Even the Jim Carrey version?
That one's terrible and deserves its pit in hell that it belongs in.
Well, when we were watching the 3, he talked about how much he loved the Jim Carrey one.
Oh, yeah, with its
Loved.
big, epic 3D sequences of running through the streets away from the ghost of Christmas future who's driving a carriage through the streets of London.
But we're not talking about that one today.
No, we're talking about 3 of the better ones.
Three really good ones. Yeah, I agree. So to at least one critic's opinion, for at least, and what I mean by one critic is one grouping of critics, highly acclaimed. We're talking about Scrooged, Muppets Christmas Carol, and A Christmas Carol starring George C. Scott.
Yes. Reason why we went with these 3 is I own all 3 of them.
Besides that.
But besides that, all 3 of these have very favorable reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, with the exception of the George C. Scott Christmas Carol, because that was a made-for-TV film.
Yes.
But I don't know about you guys, but when I was growing up, that one was the quintessential, this is a Christmas Carol.
I totally agree. Christmas Carol with George C. Scott, that is the one when you think about a classical telling of a Christmas Carol, this is exactly what you think the book is.
Yes.
That's the
It's probably
rehash.
the closest thing to the book.
Of the ones that we watched, yes.
Yeah,
And-
100.
Yeah, and it's a very traditional story of A Christmas Carol.
Like, everything about it is very, very serious. It takes the story seriously, which our other versions do not.
No, and that's part of what we're going to get into, but like it doesn't make the other 2 versions any lesser compared to the original, and that's kind of also what we're going to into. We're going to do a little bit of compare and contrast on what makes these, such great films on their own merit, and at the same time, why they vary so much and why that's still interesting.
This is the Battle of the Carols. Okay, so we're going to tell a quick synopsis of Christmas Carol in case you haven't seen Christmas Carol, which we expect everyone has, but just in case. The story is a man named Ebenezer Scrooge is the richest and stingiest man in town. With his assistant, Bob Cratchit, they run Scrooge and Marley. Marley is dead. So Scrooge goes home one day and encounters the spirit of Marley, telling him that he is the stingiest man in town, pretty much, and that he needs to do more good for the common man. And so then he's visited by 3 ghosts, the ghost of Christmas past, present, and future, who all show him his past, his present, and the people around him's Christmas, and what will happen in the future if things stay the way they are. And then he turns into a pretty good guy.
Except that's not the end of this review.
No.
No, and yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah, that's Christmas Carol if you haven't seen it. And it's a great classic novel. So let's start with the one that's kind of classic, kind of contemporary, the one that like is basically the novel. Like there's not much variance from the Dickens. So we're of course talking about the George C. Scott version.
Yes.
This one was a made-for-TV movie, actually. So when you watch it now on television or any of the HBOs and things like that, this did not have a theatrical release. It was meant for television, and it was like a television event. Like, everyone gathered around the television back in the 70s to watch this bad boy.
84. It came out in 84.
I keep thinking 70s. It looks 70s to me, but it's made for TV, so that's why. Yeah. But yeah, this is that movie. So when you watch it, the thing is that you're kind of lost in the quality just a little bit. And what I mean by that is when we talked about the fact it looks like a 70s movie, is that like it looks like an awesome 70s movie is what it looks like.
It's legitimately a movie as opposed to like, say, The Boy in the Plastic Bubble.
Of course you're going to say that. But no, it's really great. It's got a very classic look to it. The line drawing, the set design. It's very, very chic. It's very, very... what you would think the Victorian era, the early Victorian era coming out of the Regency era looks like. It puts you in that mindset. You've got the cart pulling the coffin down the street at the beginning of the movie. That's very just haunting, but it feels old at the same time. Almost got like an Ichabod Crane quality to it. And it's got all of these like flavors to it that match, and like there's a contemporary idea of what Marley was like. He's got the change, but it's also very haunting because he's got this blue tint to him, and there's just all sorts of good things that even if you look in each and every one of these, like they come to life in a way that's classical and almost feels like it's almost made for theater more than film.
I will agree with that.
Yeah.
I will say that probably one of my favorite things about this Marley is his glasses. Because his glasses are just sitting on top of his head. He's, like, as a ghost, just those little frames of him, who he was. It's very haunting.
It's terrifying. And what I like about it is, like, you know, one of the things that got me when I was watching this is the fact that he's taking the ribbon to tie his mouth shut again, and it just popped.
What do you want with me? Much.
It's just like it's such good work from an actor using your body in a way to like tell the story, make your character more lifelike. It's a skill that I can't think of the actor right now, but when you think Del Toro movies, that actor who's
Doug Jones?
Doug Jones, yeah. It's almost that level of quality. I'm not saying that this is the same thing in the level of mask work, but it's using your body to tell a story and make your character come to life, even though we're telling a story about a dead character here.
As a child, that was the most terrifying thing, just to see his jaw pop down. Oh.
And then just right there back together. Ooh, just very, very haunting. Unlike a lot of Christmas carols, I felt like the Ghost of Christmas Past in this was very, like, almost, like, that one matched up pretty well. But I think, like, the Ghost of Christmas Present is one of the big things that's different from the other ones. Scrooge a little bit is probably the closest to this, but, like, the Ghost of Christmas Present in this is a far cry from the one in the Muppets. Like, the look is there, but this Ghost of Christmas Present is kind of not a jerk, but like
he's kind of a dick.
He makes a point. Like he's not come in and get to know me better, man. No, it's more like get in your asshole. I'm gonna show you what's wrong with your life.
He pulls the children out of his robe and everything like that.
Yeah.
Like,
I haven't been that terrified since I saw the Chuck Jones animated version of this. Oh my god.
Richard Williams,
Chuck, produced by Chuck. Produced by Chuck.
Won
Jones.
an Academy Award.
Yeah.
So.
That was the only time I had seen Ignorance and Want that creepy was like in the animated version.
Oh yeah.
And then those children are just oh gosh, the eyes just like
we'll talk more about that one.
Get to that
later.
In a minute.
We'll talk about other Christmas carols later. But
of course.
There are a lot of things that I like about this particular version. For some criticism, though, I will say this is probably my least favorite Ghost of Christmas Past.
I can agree with that.
There's almost something missing about this Ghost of Christmas Past in a lot of ways.
I will say that of all the movies, I think these ghosts are probably the harshest to Scrooge.
And in the George C. Scott version, yes, I agree with that. I think these are very harsh ghosts. They're very cynical, especially past and present. You know, like they're not pleasant to be around, like, in the least bit.
They're like, we're here for a job. You're our job. Get with the program.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we're here to fix you, and we have a duty to take care of. And they make very, very snide remarks. Is almost what you want to make it. Like,
Yeah.
Like, the whole time when, like, he's with Belle and, the Ghost of Christmas Past is just smiling at him. And he's like, take me home. She's like... It's just so cruel, but so... This is what you've made of your life. This is what you deserve.
Yes, I agree. I also think that, like, as far as that goes, like, it gives Scrooge so much to work back with.
Yes.
George C. Scott has so much to work with. It's not just the ghost toting Scrooge around, where it's like, come on, Scrooge, let's go learn about your life. And instead, it's more along the lines of, you have the ghost saying these remarks, and then you have Scrooge trying to exert his worldview back out in them. It's like, I made myself a financial success because I waited for love and things like that. And like the ghost pushes back on their philosophy, and there's a lot more conflict built up between Scrooge and the ghost, which I think elevates his performance.
I think in that kind of regard, there's the scene at Cratchit's house with Ghost of Christmas Present.
He's made a point, Bob Cratchit has. Without me, there would be no feast, no goose at all. My head for business has furnished him employment.
Is that all you've learned by observing this family on Christmas Day?
Oh, no, not all, but one must speak up for oneself, for one's life.
Yes.
But they're like, but you look at what meal there is. What they have for how many they have is not much.
It's not. You can be providing more. He's your only employee. You can be giving him more money, and you can feel no less comfortable than what you are now. That's kind of what Present's point is. And like, you're right, but it gives Scrooge something to work with.
Totally.
Yeah, because like if you watch any of the other versions, which we're about to get into, like Michael Caine's happy dancing in the streets in Muppet when Present comes out. Whereas this one, George C. Scott's still not happy that he's with Present. I think he enjoys Present's company more than Past, but like...
And he argues with Future as well. Like, everything, like, he does not fully change until he is fully confronted.
Yes.
Yeah, he fights the entire way through.
Which...
Kicking and screaming is a wonderful performance.
Oh yeah, it's so much fun. It's so much fun to watch, and you can just feel his character growth.
Yes. All the way to the tombstone.
Yep.
All the way.
Why show me this if I am past all hope?
Okay, so our next movie is Muppets Christmas Carol. I didn't grow up with the Muppets. I didn't actually watch the first Muppets movie or Muppets TV show until I was in college.
Judging
thanks to
hard right
this
now.
guy. My mom was not a fan of puppets. So we didn't watch the Muppets growing up. So when I saw Muppets Christmas Carol for the first time, it was, 2016?
Yeah, it was like 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, it was. So it's still fairly new in my life. But I mean, I didn't see Scrooge until, yesterday?
Yeah.
So, but I really love A Muppet's Christmas Carol. It is something that is, fun. It's great for the entire family, and it tells the story in a much lighter way than the more traditional one that David just talked about.
Yeah.
It takes all the lesson from the original story and puts it in a sing-song way that makes it a more family-friendly.
It makes it child-friendly. Let's use the nice word there.
Yeah.
It's family appropriate. It's family friendly. It's the Muppets.
Yeah.
What else do you expect with the Muppets? Not the ABC version, but what else do you expect with the Muppets? It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah. And my favorite thing is having
Michael Caine?
No, well, Michael Caine is my favorite Scrooge, but my favorite thing is having actual Charles Dickens following everyone around, going, "Okay, this is what's happening," just in case you didn't know. Okay,
having a narrator is fun.
Yeah, and I think Gonzo's a great narrator.
Hello! Welcome to the Muppet Christmas Carol. I am here to tell the story.
And I am here for the food.
My name is Charles Dickens.
And my name is Rizzo the Rat.
Little quips and jabs, and oh, it's so nice. My favorite part though is when Charles Dickens just steps back and he's like, "Okay, I don't like Future Ghost. I'll see you at the finale."
Oh, this is too scary. I don't think I want to see any more.
Oh, when you're right, you're right. You're on your own, folks. We'll meet you at the finale.
Yeah. Oh.
and like just completely leaves for you to kind of sit in that future. Michael Caine, I think, does a great job as Scrooge because he's fun but bitter and kind of like disgusting almost in like an angry sort of old man way, but completely becomes lighthearted when he is with Present, like because the Present is a giant Muppet that shrinks down to whatever size he wants and like dances in the streets and sings one of the most iconic songs in the Muppets movie.
It is the season of the spirit. The message, if we hear it, is make it last all year.
My favorite song is the Marley and Marley song, but that's neither here nor there.
I think everybody loves Marley and Marley.
Like,
That's
Marley and Marley.
And he's visited by three ghosts plus Marley and Marley, which is a kind of a joke on like a Bob Marley kind of idea because he's Robert Marley.
Mentioning the ghosts, what I really love about this one, and growing up, I didn't really catch it and fully grasp it, but like the ghosts aren't Muppets. Like, I mean, they're Muppets. But like they're not Fozzie, they're not Kermit, they're not any.
They're the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future.
Yeah, they made great Muppets for this movie. Yeah,
they're not Muppets that you've seen in the Muppet Show or anything like that. They are their own individual characters. What I love about the past Muppet is that she is so different than all the other Muppets. She's very ghost-like, very almost,
ethereal.
Yeah, very ethereal, angelic.
I love
and
the childlike.
Yeah,
the child. I'm glad we were on the same page.
Yeah.
The childlike face makes like an innocence quality to the past.
Well, that's something about the books is that Christmas Past was very childlike, and I think this is the only one that got that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Of most movies that I've seen, this
of a lot of them. Yeah, you're right. And like this one understood the child part of past, and you're totally right.
Yeah, and she is by far the most unique of the ghosts. Like with Christmas, Christmas Present, looks very similar. It's very jolly, very holly, very Santa-like.
Santa,
yeah. And then you've got Christmas Future, who looks like death, but like so.
That's who it is.
Yeah, but it's the stereotypical death look. Yeah, where. Again, Christmas Past is very different, very childlike, like in the books. So,
I will say, like, this is your favorite Scrooge.
Yeah, I love Michael Caine.
This is, like, I think Michael Caine does a good job in this for this movie.
I was going to say, like, I don't think it's fair to say that Michael Caine is not a good Scrooge, but compared to the three movies that we watched, I have to kind of, like, say that he's my number 3.
Yeah.
I'm not going to call him my least favorite of the three, because I don't think he deserves, those wordings, but, like, he's kind of the number 3.
Jim Carrey, you're my least favorite Scrooge. But
Michael Caine has an air about him, and I think, like, in this movie, the accessibility to the child-friendly nature of the Muppets, I think Michael Caine fits perfectly into place as the puzzle piece that fits for this Scrooge in this version of Christmas Carol.
I don't think this movie would work with a different Scrooge.
I don't think so either. You'd have to work really hard to find it.
Yeah, you would.
And the thing is like, yes, this movie is a musical. Yes, it's family-friendly and it's fun. But it does take itself, in some points, very seriously.
Oh, that...
Like, the whole Christmas Future section, every time, no matter what movie it is, it's deadly serious.
Well, and then when Scrooge confronts, like, his lost love, it's very serious. It's one of the more serious segments of the Muppets movie.
And though you cared for me, there's distance in your eyes tonight, so we're not meant to be. The love is gone.
Watch the extended
cut. But
let's listen to that song and let it break your heart.
Because it will. Like, and it's a moment where the Muppets step back and they're like, oh no, we're not going to make a joke out of this. This is very serious.
I think anytime the Muppets really step back in this film, just elevates the performance. The human-to-human performances in this movie, like when there's another human on stage with another human, and I say on stage, like they're interacting to a very strong performance back and forth together. You got young Scrooge and I can't think of Elizabeth Belle. Sorry, but yeah, their love interaction when they're on together is beautiful. The entire thing when Gonzo steps back and just lets Pat or Future go with Michael Caine, like that's such a stronger scene because there's no Muppet in there.
Well, there are still Muppets, but they're Muppets that are there for they're playing characters. They're not being jokes. They're making jokes here and there. They're making jokes, but the joke is Scrooge is dead.
Yeah.
To tie off of that too, one of I think a very strong scene is the one with Kermit and Miss Piggy, because they're Cratchit and Mrs. Cratchit, and they've got two pigs and 3 frogs, something like that. They've got a combo of children, but
the abomination of science.
There's a beautiful scene between those Muppets that Scrooge just kind of takes a backhand on, is just seeing how meager their dinner is, seeing Miss Piggy get very frustrated with Scrooge and very frustrated with Kermit because he is thankful for Scrooge.
Well, I suppose that on the blessed day of Christmas, one must drink to the health of Mr. Scrooge, even though he is odious, stingy, wicked, and unfeeling, and badly dressed.
So, the human interactions and parts are good where the Muppets step back, but also that Muppet scene and then the Muppet scenes with Death are amazing. So
I think so. I agree.
Yeah.
One of the things you're talking about, like with the Cratchit house, one of my favorite parallels in this is between present and future. When you go through the present part with Michael Caine, it's actually the part where he's warming and beginning to understand in this version compared to the George C. Scott
where
version,
he's
fighting the whole way through. You have Caine starting to change his Scrooge in this moment, and like the exchanges between present actually taking almost like a benevolent teacher kind of role in this. And then when he goes back for the future moment, when Future brings him to the to Bob Cratchit's house, he's like,
It's Bob Cratchit's house. Oh, yes, Spirit. A place of joy and laughter.
like, oh, this is always this is a place of love and warmth.
It's a place of life,
and it's the part where you find out Tiny Tim is dead, and it's it's reminding you of these two to take you on the emotional roller coaster. Even though you know this story so well, you're still building something, and that gives it another little element on a different performance for Scrooge, and I like it.
Yeah, I think the fact that Michael Caine rides that roller coaster with you so well too makes it such a good movie.
Yeah.
Why would you show me this if I was past all hope?
Okay, so now we're going to talk about Scrooge. Okay, Scrooge is the one that I grew up on. I remember my mom bringing home a VHS tape of Scrooge when I was like 7 or 8, and we watched Scrooge for the first time, and boy, oh boy, it became an annual tradition.
I mean, Scrooge is a lot of fun. I liked Scrooge a lot. Yep. It's not my first time seeing it, but it's one that I've seen less. Go crazy.
This one is a modern take on the story. It's, by modern, I mean very, very 80s. It's set in the 80s. I think it came out in 88. So it's a very, very high place Scrooge. He's the president of a TV network. His name's Richard Cross in this one.
Yes, it's Richard Cross, yeah.
And
you know that.
Everybody knows that.
And he's played by Bill Murray. So Bill Murray in his 30s, mid to late 30s, playing a TV executive Scrooge, who, but the thing is all of the characters are there. Because his secretary is the Cratchit character. Because her daughter is not her daughter. Her son is the Tiny Tim character. Because he's mute in this one. He's not lame.
Yeah.
And so we have all of these characters, like he has his brother who's nephew Fred.
Mm-hmm.
We have the ghosts, his old boss is Marley.
Blam! Blam!
I don't mind you hitting me, Frank, but take it easy on the Bacardi.
And everything happens, and it's all centered around them producing this live television broadcast of Christmas Carol.
Which is very similar to the George C.C. one, too.
Yes.
It's got a very similar...
It's almost like Scrooge exists in a world where, like, they're making the George C. Scott version of it, and then, like, at the same time, the TV executive is living it, you know? Like, and I think that's so fun.
My, what a glorious day! There has never been such a day.
I will say these are my favorite ghosts.
These ghosts are different
in the best
every way that you could possibly imagine.
Because Ghost of Christmas Past is a grungy New York cab driver.
Elf. I should also point out he's got like these pointy... yeah.
But like, and when he takes it through, he's joking the whole time. Mm-hmm. He's making fun of him the whole time. He's like, "Hey, look, you're gonna take me to see my mom, and then you're gonna cry." He's like, "Everyone cries. Genghis Khan, Niagara Falls." Bill Murray sees his mom.
Niagara Falls, Frankie Angel.
I just love the Christmas presents of this is because, like, between the George C. Scott version and this version, the dad is a jerk in both versions, and he just drops off a pound of veal.
Merry Christmas.
A choo-choo train?
No, it's 5 pounds of veal.
One on Christmas Eve. That's what we always did in my family. You have to wait until Christmas morning to open the house. Isn't that what you did?
Well, if it were going to spoil, we opened it the night before.
But then there's Christmas Present.
Oh,
who's so physically abusive and hilarious.
Well, and
I love Carol Kane so much.
And see, I grew up going and seeing the live productions of A Christmas Carol at Silver Dollar City, and that Christmas Present that's in this movie is exactly what they put on stage in Silver Dollar City. This giant to life. Giant fairy, basically. An abusive Glinda, if you will.
What is this that we have here? It's a toaster! But everything about this is, like, it takes everything so differently, but it takes it seriously in a completely different way than everything else does.
Yeah, 100%. And we're still talking about the ghost. I think this is my favorite Christmas yet to come, future, whatever you want to call it.
Totally. This one's terrifying.
I love the fact that his face is a television monitor.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's very, very fitting for
Bill Murray. Yeah, it's very fitting for Bill Murray's character.
Yeah,
yeah, because he's a TV executive. Mm-hmm. Here's his future. You're nothing but television.
Yep.
And that's how you're gonna die.
My favorite thing is that while like they're cycling through the scenes, like his face will cycle through, and it'll be his face turning into a skeleton at times. Because that's who you are. You are killing yourself by not living.
Yep. It's a great future. Love it.
I also love like that he's also being chased by someone trying to kill him when he runs into future. Well, because then his will to live is very, very juxtaposed.
Yeah.
Like.
Well, that's something that's different about this one as opposed to all of the other ones.
Yeah.
In every other version of Christmas Carol, it all takes place in one night. And this one takes place over the course of like 2 or 3 days.
Yeah. The first ghost shows up at noon.
Tomorrow.
Which, like, when I was watching, I was like, what? Again, I watched it for the first time last night. I was very confused. I'm like, that is incorrect. No.
No.
And so then, like, he goes, like, after his experience with the ghost, he goes about some more of his day, and, like, you get to see some of him trying to fix his life based on each interaction with a ghost.
Right.
Which is, like, but then he goes back into his old ways, then the next ghost shows up. Mm-hmm. And so it's only after all 3 lessons have been learned does he change fully.
Yeah, and I think that's very interesting.
I'm alive, and so are you.
Well, I think it's because it presents different opportunities for the writers to give a new opportunity. Where if you look at the George G. Scott version, you have like the book, and it's like for the Belle scene. With that, he's like he can't do anything about it because Belle's already moved on to her life and everything else. But in the Bill Murray version of Scrooge, the Belle character is still very much available, and he can fix a lot of things that have gone wrong in his life, and he can pursue her.
Like after the interaction with the Marley character, the phone even dials her number for him.
Yeah.
It's here. This is what you need in your life.
Yeah. And it gives him the immediate chance to start recreating his life.
It lets him fix his life as he's going through these moments instead of just, you get all three, and now based off this information, good luck,
But, as opposed to every other Christmas Carol has, the Scrooge is a terrible, terrible person on Christmas Eve, and all of a sudden he's a wonderful human being on Christmas Day. And everyone around him is like, what is going on?
Right.
Whereas this one, you get to see his change, and everyone around him is noticing that he's just going crazy.
Which is signified even more by the, upset murderer that's going around, and the
Bobcat Goldthwait.
Yeah, the two of them take A Christmas Carol live, hostage.
Hey! I don't hear any partying in that boat, Elliot! Great!
You heard him party!
Now why wasn't I invited?
Now that was just an innocent window, and you saw what I did to that!
This one has so much fun and life to it. I feel like of the other two, we have not laughed as much with the other two as we have with this one.
Yeah,
I feel like this one is so fitting for a modern world. I know it's the modern of the 80s, but it still fits today.
Yeah.
Well, right. It's. I think the medium of the storytelling is that you're not getting lost in the Victorian costumes.
Yeah.
So you're not enchanted by the Muppets.
Yeah.
This one is the story, but
with a character who is relatable today.
Yes, 100%. Particularly relatable to me.
Mr. Newsman. But yeah, no, this is just a fun, lighthearted version that, I don't think that of versions, this is probably the least of popular one of the ones that we've watched. But it was still pretty successful for its time, but it's kind of fallen away. Which I think is kind of sad. But we'll talk more about that in our Battle of the Carols.
Fight! We have some great versions of Carol here, and I think what we want to discuss is what makes these so different to where we get these kind of products to where we're having such a great film experience with each and every one of these, and yet they're so vastly different.
Well, and they're all the same story,
and they're all the same story.
So it's the same medium, same story, and still very, very different.
I think a lot of it comes down to is how they're told. You take the George C. Scott one, and it's just the traditional, this is a Christmas Carol as written by Charles Dickens.
Right, it's classic.
Yep.
Yeah.
Then you have the Muppet Christmas Carol, which is, it's the story of a Christmas Carol as told by Charles Dickens with the Muppets.
Yep.
It's a musical, family-friendly version of Christmas Carol, which is a good kind of introductory story for families and friends and kids and everyone.
And it's a traditional Muppet story too.
Yeah,
it's
they made it about the Muppets.
Yeah.
Right.
Completely. And then you have Scrooged, which is an 80s PG-13 film, which it is.
Yeah.
And it just gets Bill Murray'd up like you wouldn't believe.
Oh yeah, it's Bill Murray being the worst version of Bill Murray.
He loves Christmas. It's the time of year when everyone's around the television set.
Ding. I'm going to cherish this forever. Leaves it in a cab.
he has a very Murray Christmas special or whatever.
Yeah, that one wasn't good.
Well, I know, but Bill Murray loves Christmas is what I'm getting at.
Oh yeah, Bill Murray's great. Bill Murray is great in Scrooge. Without him, the movie probably wouldn't have worked. I couldn't have seen a Robin Williams in that role.
No, not really. Yeah. And I think that's a great place for us to start this conversation. Let's talk about Scrooges.
Okay.
Yeah, you talk about the Bill Murray version. It's, when I'm watching this one, I think he's very, very Bill Murray the entire time that you're watching him. Mm-hmm. Now that works wonderfully and beautifully, and that's great casting. That is.
just letting him play and build his character.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the thing with a lot of like big celebrities. Like, if you have Bill Murray in a movie, you're watching Bill Murray in a movie. You're not watching Bill Murray play a character. It's kind of like Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is Tom Cruise in whatever movie Tom Cruise is in.
Exactly.
Like, so Bill Murray is going to do Bill Murray things regardless of what the movie is.
Yep.
But he is doing a great job doing Bill Murray.
Yeah, he's a great Bill Murray.
Yep.
Yeah, who would have figured?
Yep.
But yeah, no, it's a strong performance. There's a lot of humor to it, and at the same time, it doesn't take anything away from the integrity of Scrooge.
No.
His point is that he is this kind of he's not so much greedy as he is just kind of stubborn and kind of a jerk at the same time. Like
very opinionated.
And very opinionated.
He'll crack jokes to other people's expense.
Yes, the business to him is not so much. He doesn't own the business in this one.
No.
Instead, like this Scrooge is
He's
more
just running the business.
Is running the business. He's the president of the station. So his idea is like, we need viewers on here. He's greedy for his product. He's not greedy for his money, which is very different. But it still leaves the point of a shallow life, which.
Yeah.
May
He's
not
pushed
play
everything
to the
else
novel,
away.
but it makes a very modern telling, and I also think it makes it more of accessible Scrooge to people like me and you, because we don't own the bank, we don't own Walmart, we don't own major corporations, but we work for them. He's not blue collar, but it's almost more accessible to a blue collar audience and a lower white collar audience. Yeah.
All right, and let's talk about Michael Caine then.
Yeah,
Michael Caine. Like, again, we talked about him a little bit in that section, but he is the family-friendly Scrooge.
Yeah.
Yes.
He is the one that you would put on, like, there are kids in the room, but there's a Christmas Carol going to happen tonight. This is the one that you'd put on.
Yeah, he's very, he's stern, but he's very grandfather-y.
He's grumpy granddad.
Yeah.
He's very, it's a great casting for him also because, like, he's everything that you want out of a Scrooge. He comes with his British Cockney style that Michael Caine carries anyway. Yeah. And, like, he just plays it up like he is almost playing a classic. He's almost playing a George C. Scott character. It's a very different performance, but he's going in that vein very hard. But at the same time, it's still much more family-friendly to where it's relaxed more in the writing.
Michael Caine's having so much fun.
He's having a blast.
In this that it just carries through.
Yeah.
He's dancing, singing, full of joy, full of life. Yeah, he's alive.
Yeah, he gets to have his acting moments, but then he's over here acting with Muppets. And, like, when he's acting with Muppets, you can kind of tell he doesn't quite know what he's doing.
But he's trying
but he's,
so hard.
He's having fun
here.
Yeah.
Like, again, like, we call attention to him dancing in the streets with Ghost of Christmas Present, because he's just kind of over here doing this. And that's all he's doing. And it's so strange, because it's Scrooge. Earlier in the movie, he's yelling that he's going to fire everyone in his office.
Unemployment line!
And then he goes from one to the exact furthest opposite, and we're not even at the end of the movie yet.
No, not in the least bit.
So there's this kind of just juxtaposition of where Scrooge falls in this one, which
I think he's a happy medium between.
He fits for this movie.
Yeah.
Yes, he does.
Like, but at the same time, he's not. He doesn't have a journey, whereas other Scrooges do. He has a journey, but it's a much shorter journey.
It's a much shorter journey because it's a family movie, so it feels like a shorter movie, whether it is or not. It feels like a shorter movie.
Which makes an interesting parallel to the George C. Scott, which while they're both playing this contemporary style of Scrooge, George C. Scott's character is built on conflict throughout the entire course of the movie. And that's a very classical design in acting also and in directing, where you're building the tensions between the characters very strongly.
Up until the final point.
Like in the George C. Scott version, you can they build up all of his conflicts into one. Like, you start off with him being alone at the school. His dad doesn't like him. His fiance left him. Everything, you can see how he's built, and like George C. Scott plays all of these levels.
You see his rising action up into the denouement, all the way through. Where with Michael Caine, he's got a reason and he's kind of there, but again, like we had talked about earlier, once he hits Christmas Present, he kind of like turns into soft puppy and just kind of goes, oh no, I should be a good person. Even though he does need that final nail in the coffin with death. Like, but George, he just all the way through, fighting, kicking and screaming to the very end.
You're a little absent-minded, Spirit.
No, I'm a large, absent-minded spirit.
So, I would say that whereas the George C. Scott version is an onion, the Michael Caine version is a parfait. They both have layers. But the Michael Caine version, the layers are very, very... Sweet. And the George C. Scott version is very, very bitter.
By the time you get to the center of the George C. Scott one, you're like, oh, it's still an onion. But when you get to the end of the Michael Caine parfait, you're like, oh, there's chocolate at the bottom.
Well, at the same time, they both make you feel emotions, but the onion's going to make you cry more.
I mean, that was a really good analogy.
That was a really good analogy, and I hate you for it. I'm just glad we
ogres are like onions.
Well, I mean, that is Scrooge. He's an ogre at the end of the day. Yeah, no one wants to go to his swamp.
Parfaits may be the most delicious thing on the whole damn planet.
Marley. I would like to talk about the arrival of Marley, because it's the traditional knocker. Yeah?
Yes.
Where, like, you've got the George C. Scott one, which he's like a hologram on top of the doorknob. You've got door knocker. You've got the Muppet one where the knocker turns into a Muppet, and then you've got the Scrooge one where it
doesn't really have the knocker.
He doesn't have the knocker.
Like, he pounds on the door.
Yeah, and just kind of arrives.
Yeah.
But that arrival, though, they're very different, again, in how they're telling the story as well.
Yeah, and I think they're actually very interesting introductions to each Marley, where you have, like, I feel like, okay, don't get me wrong, when I watch this, there's a reminder that it is a made-for-TV film when you're talking about Christmas Carol with George C. Scott. That version, I feel like there were some budget restraints, and someone said, like, let's just try to make this the best that we can with the technology that's available to us. And, like, I feel like that was still strong enough. It was a good enough answer for it. Yeah.
Yeah, and they later have the faces pop up on the fireplace and stuff as he's arriving.
Yeah.
Like
it's obvious that it's like scrim almost, but it still really works. Whereas then you have, like, with the appearance of Marley, you have these three. You have the Jacob and Robert Marley.
Oh, yeah. Jacob, not George, sorry.
Jacob and Robert Marley from Muppet Christmas Carol, and it's Statler and Waldorf from the Muppets.
And they sing a wonderful song.
But at the same time, they're just cracking one-liners. It's like the fact that they're telling Scrooge that he's doomed is done in song.
Where, as in the George C. Scott one, he literally walks in with all of his chains, plops down on the couch and says, no, and screams at him. Like, and then...
Mankind was my business.
Yeah. And then with Scrooged,
it's Bob Hope.
Yeah.
It's Bob Hope, yeah.
But
it's so different. It's so different, and it works so well. I only feel like the biggest difference between me and the other two is that, like, I wasn't ready for it. Like, and I mean that in a way that, like, we built up for in Scrooged, we built up for Marley in the other two, whereas in Scrooged, I really don't feel like we ever really built up for the introduction of Marley. And I felt like that was a wasted opportunity, because you could have had, with the giant TV screens in the background, you could have Bill Murray open the door and see the face glance on the TV and then have it go out and be static.
Which they kind of did with Death, because
they did it with Death, but that's Marley's opportunity is the door knocker. And when he comes to the door, that could be the replacement for the door knocker, which I feel like is a wasted opportunity. I'm not saying that the Marley performance is bad. I'm saying that, like, they could have done more with with the Scrooged version of this.
Yeah, I will say, though, I think that by the end of that scene, though, in Scrooged, I feel like this is probably the most threatening of the Marleys.
Oh yeah,
because you have him pick him up by the throat and push him out a window.
Yeah.
And then
him
drop him.
Well, no, not drop him. His arm breaks apart, and so he's standing there laughing as he plummets to his death. But he doesn't actually
he doesn't actually die because we don't have a movie. Yeah.
But these little things, I feel like with Scrooged, we do miss the door knocker sequence. But we have this very, very threatening moment of him arriving in the room.
Yes, it's very odd too. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like Marley he's quintessential to the story.
Oh yeah,
like
you
can't do it without it because he's the first ghost to come and go, hey,
there's a reason why
rethink your life. Yeah.
There's a play called Jacob Marley's Christmas.
Yeah.
And which is Christmas Carol with Jacob Marley. So
yeah, but I think Scrooge, while it's threatening, the Marley character is threatening. George C. Scott is still threatening, too, but in a very different way.
Yes, like they're more at odds.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about Tiny Tim.
Okay. All right, let's talk about Tiny Tim.
But with Christmas Carol, like the George C. Scott, I feel like that's probably my least favorite of our Tiny Tims.
That is a...
He's very British.
He's very, very British.
God bless us, everyone!
And his teeth. It's just awful.
But Tiny Tim is supposed to be a sickly child. They made him look like a sickly child.
Yeah.
Like
he's the sickly child that turns Scrooge into a loving individual.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, yesterday when we were watching it, we, your wife made mention of, I think that they just cast the kid who listens the best.
Yeah. But to say, a lot of times with kid actors, it's not really the kid that can act the best. It's the kid who can take direction the best. Yeah.
So, I like the fact that we have Tiny Tim, and he's an okay Tiny Tim.
He does fine. He does fine.
Yeah, his God bless us everyone is just perfectly acceptable.
God bless us, Mr. Scrooge.
Mr. Scrooge. But he doesn't leave a lasting impression on you.
No.
Where like if we look at the Muppets Christmas Carol, little Tiny Tim, like I want to say rabbit. That's not right. Little Tiny Tim Frog is. Like, he breaks your heart because he's a frog that can't use his legs.
I feel like this is an interesting little parallel. When we talk about the Tiny Tim and the George C. Scott version, we're talking one of the things that I found actually to be the biggest failure of that version is the fact that the relationship between Scrooge caring for Tiny Tim is never really well defined. Whereas the Michael Caine version actually does a better job than all three. Where he's like, tell me, will the boy live? And it's there's a lot of emotion, and you can see Scrooge warming up to the Cratchit family, and then warming up to this child he says is a remarkable child, and can see like so much potential in this kid. Whereas the George C. Scott, even though it's the more contemporary style one, misses the opportunity almost completely. Yeah, and like it's almost just like a mute point, really, when he's like, "Tell me, will the child live?" For the George C. Scott version, Joanna, where is the child gonna live? You know? Yeah.
He doesn't really care. Where like with Michael Caine, like his heart is breaking, and you can see that his heart is breaking, and you can see it on Kermit's face that he's broken. And, like, the entire family is destroyed because this tiny little frog didn't make it.
Yeah.
Tell me, Spirit, will he live?
Tell me if Tiny Tim will live.
Well, is he going to be okay?
But then we go into Scrooge, and their Tiny Tim is completely different, because our Tiny Tim in this one isn't, like...
lame. He's mute.
He's mute.
And he's mute because his father was killed
in front of him.
Like so he hasn't spoken for like 5 years.
Instead, there's something traumatic that happens to this Tiny Tim. Instead of
he has PTSD.
Yeah. It's a very, very different Tiny Tim approach, and I really like it.
He's my favorite Tiny Tim because you're sitting there, you're watching him watch A Christmas Carol. You're watching him like. That is obviously a big part of his life. You see him in front of the TV, like mouthing along, "Bless us, everyone." And then it builds up to the end where
he speaks.
And the line he says is "blesses everyone."
God bless us, everyone.
And it's heartbreaking. And like mom loses her like mind because she's like, "Oh my god!"
I will say that the mom being Cratchit in this one is my favorite Cratchit.
Yeah,
that's a great Cratchit. Yeah,
oh, yeah. Like because you see this family life and it's a very modern. Traditional family life.
Yeah, it's mom, grandma, and like 7 kids. Like,
I think it's 4, but
yeah, but it's
a
such,
big family.
It's such a great flair though for a very Americanized and very modern version of what a Cratchit family would be like today, and a lot of thought process. You know, it's a single mother trying to make her way through life with all these kids almost. Yeah.
And Doctor, $200 to tell me that you don't speak.
I don't need to pay $200. I know you can't speak. I love that. I love it. Like,
you're gonna grow up and you're gonna be a lawyer, and then we're gonna sue him.
It's so she's such a strong character too.
I love it so much.
There's so much, and you love it because like you're empathizing with her. It's like you're her. I love you so much, and it's very different from the very modest Bob Cratchits that you get from the English version. It's like, yes, Mr. Scrooge, no. I will light the candle, and
she is a strong, independent woman who doesn't need any man. Like she almost like rips Scrooge a new one when he takes her kid's painting off the wall. Like she is
she's mad about that.
I think my favorite, like that's great. I also love the fact that he said to give his own brother a towel, and she sent him a VCR. And so it's just little things of like her, like she is so strong against Bill Murray's Scrooge character,
who's also very strong, and it's like as though it gives Cratchit a fighting chance.
It gives them such a strong dynamic and such a good friendship enemyship that's so good.
That's one of the big differences between all these films is that like the Cratchit version and this one between Scrooge, they're friends in this, and like you like it's the closest thing he has to a friend. And at the same time, I feel like probably in Christmas Carol, like Scrooge and Cratchit, like that is Scrooge's closest friend because that's who he works with. Is the relationship there, because without Jacob Marley, Scrooge has nothing. But it's not shown the same way in this.
Well, and then even in the Muppets one, his friend is kind of Kermit Cratchit, but Kermit Cratchit is more friendly with the mice that he's also employed, because he's got like 6 other employees and
the other book setters.
The book setter.
So we have all of these different elements for A Christmas Carol, and like we've kind of gone through a lot of the individuals. Shall we try and discuss which one we think is the best version?
Which one I like the best? I'll start there. The one that I like the best is Muppet. And I love Muppet. It's such a great story. It's very, very... It's fun. It's energetic. It makes me feel Christmassy at the end of the day. Now, what I say is probably the better movie is Scrooged. And it's not anything against the John C. Scott, because I feel like when you compare Scrooge to the George C. Scott version of this, what you have are two very, very things that are hard to really compare to each other as the same. You have a great movie made with George C. Scott. You have a great movie made with Bill Murray. There's some significantly awesome performances happening with the George C. Scott version, whereas the Scrooge version is technically just beautiful. Like there's the design is well done. You have like I said, death. No, I say death. The Ghost of Future Christmas Yet to Come with the television face. You've got like a different dynamic with the and it feels very 80s TV the entire time. You've got a totally different approach to how to present the ghosts in a more modern 80s feel. I think that Scrooge does a wonderful job of freshening up a story and making a new film for you to enjoy. And that's what I think is like out of the three of these, I think Scrooge is the better film, kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I really like Scrooged. Again, I watched it for the first time, and I think it's a great movie, and it should be added to like one of the top Christmas carols. But my favorite Christmas carol will always be A Muppet's Christmas Carol, because it is so much fun, and at the end of the day, I want it to feel like Christmas. I want to learn a lesson, but I want to get that nice, happy, Christmassy feeling, and you definitely get that from the Muppets. But because you're singing, you've got songs happening, you've got these fun characters like dancing and having a fun time. Even like Marley and Marley that are absolutely miserable, they're still having a fun time because like
it's the Muppets.
Yeah. And so by far that one will always be my favorite. It's got enough heartwarming, it's got enough lesson, but sprinkled through with the Muppets and Christmas all the way through.
Corey, what do you think?
Okay, so I grew up on Scrooged, so I have a very strong version of Scrooged. I started watching Muppet Christmas Carol like midway through high school because one of my friends introduced me to it, and I absolutely love it. And I love the Muppets with all my heart. I gotta give it to the George C. Scott version because, like, I love A Christmas Carol. I love the story. I love the characters. It is my favorite Christmas story ever. Like, that includes A Christmas Story. That includes Miracle on 34th Street. Miracle on 34th Street is probably my favorite Christmas movie. Christmas Carol is my favorite Christmas story. Because there's so much life and energy and hope built into the story itself. It is the story of a man who is literally one of the worst people on the face of the planet, changing for the betterment of all mankind. And just that feeling of hope that anyone can make the world a better place just by trying to be nicer is so quintessential Christmas to me. And so the George C. Scott one being the story, I think, is my reasoning of it being, to me, the best favorite version.
Well, you know, at the end of the day, when I'm going to talk about Christmas movies and things like that, Christmas Carol is great and all. But when I think Christmas, I think Die Hard.
When I think Christmas, I think A Christmas Story.
When I think Christmas, I think Miracle on 34th Street.
I don't think Die Hard, but anyway, I had to throw that in your face.
I know.
Merry Christmas, everyone, and we're glad that you joined us for another episode on our YouTube channel here. If you don't mind, please subscribe so when we have new content coming out for the new year, we will definitely get it out to you and you can enjoy it immediately.
Happy
Also,
holidays.
Subscribe to us on Facebook, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter,
Instagram,
social
everything.
media platforms.
Visit
blah, blah,
our
blah,
website.
blah, blah.
She built it and she worked hard on it.
She did.
So,
until the new
everyone.
year. Yep. Bye, everybody.
Bye.